Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to a thingamadeal here. We haven't done one of these in like a few weeks or whatever, so let's go ahead and do that sort of thing, shall we? Okay, so, we're probably just gonna get a couple fights ahead, nothing too particularly fancy, as it were. Not entirely sure where we even were here. I know we were doing the Halbrand fight, or at least what would be... Is this still the Halbrand fight? I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he died, maybe he's just not showing up on this route, I forget. Anyway, so, hope y'all have been going well. This whole, release thing with Tic Tacs has been pretty freaking awesome, I gotta say. Definitely been a little bit bigger of a swell of support than I would have expected, so that's been awesome. I always love to see when that happens. I don't think we've seen this much growth since, TOR came out. Good to see that folks are still interested in this old stuff. That's always really heartwarming to see. For all y'all folks that maybe were only here for the Tic Tacs and are wondering what we're looking at right here, this was just a weird challenge run that I decided to do for Tactics Ogre Reborn. So this is when Tactics Ogre got the same treatment, although it was a little bit more dramatic a few years back. For those unfamiliar with this game, basically this is kind of like if FFT had expanded sideways in a whole bunch of ways and also came out before FFT. This game is why FFT exists, for all intents and purposes. Basically, he wanted to do a whole political drama kind of thing, wanted to have a very adaptive story, and that's what Tactics Ogre was originally supposed to play the part of, and then, as time went on, they're like, hey, what if you did this for Square, and also just like, we put Final Fantasy on it, and it actually made money this time, and yeah, that's how Final Fantasy Tactics happened. So essentially what we're seeing in this case is that, unlike FFT, a lot of your characters, rather than, say, growing directly in sort of like in terms of building up cross classes and whatever else, a lot of these units are essentially going to be good out of the box at whatever it is that you assign them to do, because it's just like, oh, hey, this is just a soldier. You give them their orders, and they are going to kick ass. That's their job. That is what they do. They don't need to be specially trained as anything or babied around. So essentially, this is more chessy, I guess you could say, in terms of its overall vibes and whatever else. Additionally, I want to point out that yes, I realize the absurdity of going and explaining what a what a game is, like 8 parts into it or whatever it is right here. Kind of a bit of a nonsense thing to do, in all honesty, but it does feel like something that may potentially be, useful or what have you. So bear in mind a lot of the rules are going to be very different on this one, so like you'll notice that in a lot of cases we're being a little bit careful with where we plant our feet and whatever else, keeping our distance and what have you, because you are judged on every single tile that you move in this one. If any units are downed, if you don't have the right items to bring them back right now, there's a pretty decent chance of permadeath. Usually you're just going to accept permadeath and move on in this one. When it comes to your units, they're just soldiers on the field. They're not expected to be treated particularly special. Your party sizes are way bigger, and while you do have characters that have an impact in the story and whatnot, even they will actually just kind of change the story based on whether they live or die, and it's pretty darn nifty. Really, I should just make this its own video instead of adding an introduction to this thing partway through a playthrough, because like somebody's gonna look at this stupid thing way down the line of like, what the hell is a PlayStation Vita and why are you playing on it? Only to find this weird explanation that makes no sense out of context. Okay, so for future people, this context only currently exists because we had a remake of a different game that was after this game, but also before this game, and also before it a second time, but also after it in terms of the other version. They just happen to come from the same people, except not all of the same people, but most of the same people that at least put their names on credits. So, yeah. There's that. Also, a lot of the story beats are basically the same. In many ways, FFT is kind of a boil down of this one, with, for example, Vice being sort of lame or Delita for all intents and purposes. We have Ravnus, who's, for all intents and purposes, Agrius without superpowers. We've got... we can just go ahead and finish this one off right now, actually. We've got Denim, who's basically Ramza with no moral compass, so there's that. Literally, a good chunk of the story is just Denim processing him doing terrible things to people, because that is just the nature of his world. So rather than sitting there and contemplating, like, oh geez, I am such a bad guy, actually, or, contemplating how I can potentially be the moral good guy here, in a lot of cases he's just like, well, orders are orders, and then 5 minutes later he's like, yep, I have now completely committed to this cause. Also, holy crap, I'm actually just a really terrible person. It's interesting. It's a very fascinating angle that you don't oftentimes see and stuff, so that's always fun. Anywho, so yeah, currently what we're trying to do is kill that guy, kill Mr. Ninja Guy. We're doing an archer-only run. The reason that this is a challenge in this particular one is due to the nature of how scaling works in this remake. So they had this weird problem with archers from kind of like from the beginning, basically, where they accidentally made them really overpowered in the PS1 and SNES version, wherein nobody could pretty much counter them at all. So eventually, what we saw was the PSP version, which came out and said, "Okay, look, these archers, they're." Originally, they were supposed to be nerfed in terms of their power. They really weren't. But they now have a dead zone when they're firing, so if stuff gets close, they can pressure them into doing no actions, which is fine. That part's good. But when it comes to scaling and stuff, their original scaling was a little bit like what we're looking at right now, wherein essentially if anything has armor, it's supposed to bounce off, but if it doesn't have armor, they just absolutely shred like nobody's business. They're meant to be high DPS, terrible penetration kind of units. However, they introduced skills in the PSP version, and possibly way too many of them. As well as a lot of interesting tech, like for example, this bow has a silencing effect on there, and this would be guaranteed to inflict silence with his guaranteed attack that we're about to launch. However, that guy is also currently about to come down with a bad case of dead, so that will not be a problem. Anyway, so as far as the scaling went, yeah, in PSP they had this problem, and they essentially had addressed it by saying, okay, so, these units are supposed to bounce off, and if somebody grinds hard enough, they'll be rewarded for it. And that's a nice thought to have. Except that you could also equip multiple of these skills at once, which meant that you could also grind multiple of these skills at once, which also meant that every single one of them was individually balanced to potentially be really powerful and, beneficial and whatever else. But when you put multiple on there, like, for example, you took your archer and their baseline version was bouncing off of armor, sure, then they're like, oh, they have anatomy, so now they have additional penetration versus units and additional damage versus those units, okay, and we can stack that, 8 times naturally, and then also we can potentially stack that up to like 10 times depending on equipment. Oh, and then we can also equip the augment on their weapon, and so they'll, potentially get an elemental weapon, and that weapon will already improve itself by like 15% or more. Then we also see the case where they end up applying the augment to that weapon, which doubles up on the exact same thing that anatomy was doing, and then they also get to apply their weapon skill, which also doubles up on the exact same thing that anatomy was doing. And then we also get strengthen, which is an additional like 20% or so per rank, and then we get to just multiply that to absolute buffuckery as well. So yeah, basically strengthen had no bonus that it would apply, unless it managed to get past armor. The thing is, all of their bonuses were really good, if they got past armor. Guess who got past armor very easily with all those stacked up bonuses? Definitely archers! And because of the fact that they always had the longest range by a pretty wide margin, like literally longbows could outrange guns, which is a little bit of a weird historical non-thing, but anyway. So yeah, they basically could outrange everything, outspeed everything, outdamage everything, because their ranks were always higher than everybody else. So they became comically powerful. And so finally, when they came to Reborn here, essentially what they did was, on top of putting up a level cap so that everybody's always fighting at the level that they're supposed to. So you couldn't just like level grind, power grind through absolutely everything. Your level cap also hard capped your skills, but additionally it also meant that these units were fully working as intended the entire time, meaning that they bounced off armor, but they will be very good against anything that they can penetrate. And there's ways to get around this. And one of the things that we're doing during this challenge is not using those many things. So like if you apply fear and breach to somebody, you can usually one-shot almost any enemy in the game with an archer. But yeah, we will not be doing that on account of that is specifically the whole point of this challenge and whatnot. So yeah, we're just not doing that. Anyway, I should go restock on items, but instead we will go for this raison way and see what we're looking at here. Also, let's see, we got quite a few lightning units. I feel like, I forget why, but I feel like I need to swap one of those out. I have no reason to think that that's a good idea, but let's go ahead and take a peek. He's running longbow right now. He's got basically nothing. So yeah, that's fun. Anyway, let's go ahead and chuck some grenades on you. Potentially... No, we don't need that. That for a little bit of tanking. That for a little bit of healing. He probably will not need that whatsoever. And let's go ahead and get going on this thing. And there's that! Also, I should probably turn down the music very slightly. I don't know how loud that is being, but hopefully that will sort out the problem a little bit. Now, this is where I expect this one to probably end today, because Decurion Vance, which is his name, not a title. It always sounds like a title. He is frickin' redonkulous in a lot of cases, so there's a pretty solid chance that that's going to go poorly. Also, would probably be a good fight to have brought along some exorcism juice to go deal with those zombies, but, well, I guess we're just not doing that. So current plan, give or take, just basically spam basic attacks versus clerics, ignore everybody else, and hope to drop Decurion with finishers. Probably drop some buffs early on. So I should probably point out for the new FFT fans that are here currently, the buffs in this one come with a bunch of guarantees. So, like, when I say that this version ended up adding a bunch of things to this game, there was a preposterous amount of mechanics that have been added to this game over time, and one of the things that they added to its remake was guarantees. So basically, debuffs will always be guaranteed, and actually buffs will also be guaranteed, to be effective within a certain range. So for example, when applying dodge, they will never go below 20% odds to hit, so that is potentially very useful. In many ways, this is kind of like... well, I would say it's like concentration, but literally there is a skill called concentration that does the same thing for making sure that your debuffs never go below 30% chance to hit, which doesn't sound like much, but in the post-game where everything is running around like a up to 20 level advantage over you, and basically can dodge pretty much anything that you've got, being able to guarantee any amount of anything is very, very useful. But yeah, a lot of these things, they sound weird when compared with FFT, and you should definitely consider the fact that the party size is like 3 times what you can equip there, so that's one aspect to it. For another, you have quite a few ways to guarantee your actions, quite a few ways to use the terrain and your formation and whatever else to achieve certain goals. So while a lot of things do potentially sound like, you know, oh no, I wouldn't touch that with a 1,000-foot pole, understand that in context it makes a lot more sense. Anyway, now, one more thing I should probably mention for the new guys here is when it comes to these cards. So many of these were stuff that you previously could equip more or less as passives, give or take. They wanted to give more of a board game feel to this one, and this series in particular has always had a sort of board game aesthetic to it. Very literally, the first game in the series, March of the Black Queen, actually is literally just a board game. Like, the entire thing takes place with all of your pieces on a giant map, with a sort of like a grid board game aesthetic going on. When you get into the battles themselves, you even see the little inkwells and like rule books and whatever else off to the side, as well as being able to draw cards every time that you go and liberate a town, and that's, you know, that's nifty. And so yeah, they just sort of went into that aesthetic a little bit more here. Not that cards appearing on the field didn't happen in previous versions, they were usually only for stats before. They added what were known as buff cards this time around because of that previously mentioned over-excessive stacking of various buffs. So for example, those little sword cards are kind of the equivalent of getting a hold of Strengthen from before, seeing as that skill is no longer in the game. It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. Whereas something like that little star card over there is a critical bonus. Criticals couldn't apply to everything before, they only were applying to basic attacks. Now they can apply to everything, which means that you can get some really weirdly janky builds going, but with the right use of cards, you can make almost anything ridiculous. And so, while this does sound like it'd be fairly random, it's surprising how well this works. Anyway, additionally we have the element of, well, elements that are currently at play here as well, with essentially anyone with an elemental bonus getting a pretty notable advantage over another, like you saw earlier with the fire guy with no skills, still doing a decent punch to that ice guy. Now, compared with FFT, these numbers might not look terribly impressive, but yeah, no, again, bear in mind you have a lot of units who potentially can scale in a lot of really comically excessive ways. So oftentimes I will be taking shots on people just for the purpose of free training and nothing else, or in the case of these Baldur Shortbow guys, trying to apply silence to somebody, because the AI may oftentimes panic and try to get rid of silence on somebody that cannot cast spells. So, you know, there's also that. Anywho, let's see. Let's go ahead and attempt to silence this guy. We're just barely out of range, so I'm just going to go ahead and let him skip his turn for now. By any chance, is there anyone with a shield available to shield bash Canopus? So, it's worth noting that if you carry a shield in this one, you can push somebody backwards, and what I'd like is to shield bash him into that card over there. So I should have a shield over on you, and we can go ahead and put him into his critical card over here. There we go. Get that picked up. And so that should potentially give us a pretty okay advantage versus Mr. Roberval over there. I probably should have swapped out some elements before this fight, but honestly, I just completely didn't look at it. You do have a scout mode that allows you to tell what's going on. It's actually one of those things that was notable as being added to the Evolos Chronicles, because it definitely did not have that feature before, and it was significant. Alright. Anyway, let's see, bowgun, see if we can maybe stun this guy a little bit. Actually, wow, his defense is awful. Oh wait, it's not Roberval we need to be going after, it's Vance. What am I doing? My brain don't work so good sometimes, it turns out. Alright, well, I guess pop one of... Because, yeah, Vance is usually pretty darn tanky. Whatever, we're just going to continue going after this guy. You get a little bit of extra MP every time you attack somebody, and MP is what you use to throw out your finisher skills. You start off with nothing, and you would like to make that more than nothing as time goes on. Now, this might potentially work out reasonably well. We're doing an okay job against most things, but you never know when fights suddenly land you on a brick wall with this challenge. Especially when it comes to tankier stuff. Like, realistically, it's probably going to come down to the fact that I did not apply any bonuses, or I didn't give an advantage to Canopus over there, who is currently going, compared with his other version, like compared with if I had made him air, he's going in with a 60% disadvantage at this point. So while he might potentially be able to throw together a little bit of a crit action, that is potentially something to consider. But for the time being, I can't have everyone else suppress or delete his healing support over there, and we'll just sort of see what we can do. Alright, so what does Dark Weight look like on Mr. Dude Man? Like 10%. Fantastic. Okay. Well, that is going to need some improving. Hopefully this crits. There we go. That is one healer gone. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to move some assets around a little bit. Again, not the way that I should be handling this, but it's fine. So, thinking what we do. Right, if that sand spider could stop kicking my ass, that'd be great. What does your Dullbind look like? 68. I mean, this is not completely awful, so... Okay, this is doable, especially through crits and whatever else. Okay, so can you hit this guy? Yes. Okay, so that's going to silence him because we picked up that Eagle Eye earlier. So that's him out of commission for the time being. Alright, go ahead and pop one of these over this way. Just keep doing business over that direction. Don't even engage with the melee guys because we don't have time to deal with them. Either we deal with Decurion and he's done, or not. So we just kind of run past them. And then we start throwing the grenades on him. So the grenades, for those unfamiliar, again, we're several parts into this, but whatever, let's explain mechanics now. The grenades are going to scale off of weapon skills, so these are going to essentially be a freeform weapon anybody can carry with them, and higher weapon skills make them operate a bit better. This further scales with the physical attack cards if we can find those. Currently there's only one on the field, but we're not going to bother with that. Yeah, go ahead and do one of these. Just pop that guy in the face. Get him a little bit silenced so we don't have to deal with any more of his spammy bullshit, as it were. Alright, and then finally, I'm thinking one overripe fruit over here, so that she can do a little bit of area healing. So yeah, overripe fruit will cause a unit to sacrifice themselves to heal everybody else around them. Additionally, getting somebody back up on their feet will cause them to instantly get a turn. So we can potentially cheese this later, but for the time, that is a way to get Canopus back up to full so that he's not threatened by Decurion over there, and we should have just enough units left to be able to start surrounding him. So you can go ahead and go forward, get yourself out up to lower health, I think. Yeah, 54 is fine. 103 from this grenade is better, so just do that. So yeah, set damage is pretty fantastic in this one. You can think of grenades as serving the challenge run role of something like Gravity from FFT, where it's just like it's a set amount of damage. It's not really scaling, but it is something that bypasses a lot of other defensive means, since this one does have an armor system, unlike FFT. Anyway, so back to it. Yeah, that one's looking pretty chonky there. Hoping somebody can pick up that Fizz card in the back. That could potentially be a pretty decent benefit. Let's go ahead and skip all of that. Also, I appreciate this guy because he's one of the very few that will actually occasionally run a skirmisher build. But he runs a shield and crossbow, which is just the best. I just love that. I have an unreasonable love of shield and crossbow builds. Okay. Yeah, just go ahead and go for that guy. Pick up your crit card just to get it off the field, because I don't want them backing it up onto one of those. Didn't roll dodge either one of those 2 times. However, we got Mr. Vance over there. What can we do with this? So, yeah, we might as well just drop this. It's probably going to drop about a 140 or so with a crit. There's a really high chance for him to crit with 2 crit cards. It's roughly in the ballpark of 60%. So we're going to go ahead and put that up there, and that's not even including his daily luck, so there's that too. Okay, none of that is looking particularly spectacular right now. Alright, you go ahead and drop another dull bind on him. There we go. Now that's reasonable. Again, both of these are currently running at disadvantage. Go ahead and drop one of these. Another one at a disadvantage. I love how I left all of my heavy hitters with a huge disadvantage versus this guy. Way to think. Way to make that brain do brain stuff, you know? But either way, yeah, this looks like it'll be just fine. Definitely nowhere near as bad as Hector was. Like, good lord, that was... I know it was a short episode, because it was completely unexpected that that would suddenly pay off, but you do not understand how long Hector took. Like, in the background, that was a struggle and a half. Anyway, there we go. Get one over here. Yeah, these physical cards, they only will boost a little bit right now. Like, if Canopus got his hands on one, he's got a lot more kind of push there. For everybody else, it's less impressive, but there we go. Drop another Whirlwind shot over here. Can probably go around the corner. Yeah, her skills kind of suck. Yeah, you can go ahead and go around the corner over here. You actually can just pick up a Fizz card. I was going to say we get that 1 unit up and back up on her feet, but we can drop a Fizz plus Dark Weight from over here. That should be pretty meaty, because she doesn't have a disadvantage. She's neutral, and then with an advantage, he would have been absolutely thunder-dunked at this point. But I suppose, if nothing else, that saves us on some Elemental Charms, since we can't actually go and get any more of those for a while. So it's a couple more fights before we can actually get a hold of any more charms to change anyone's elements around for any advantages that that may give. But there should be more than enough meat left on the bones to just tank all remaining damage in this particular area, and then we can just sort of proceed on as normal. So yeah, this was a lot better than I expected. Usually Decurion is... like, Vance is a bit of a party, is the thing. He definitely can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. Oh yeah, I think the reason I wasn't using Yunin before is I didn't remember if I banned Uniques or not. I don't think I did. Plus, it just looks funny having him pop out in all this armor and just popping out with his longbow. So that works out nice. Anywho, we got a nice Fizz card from Mr. Canopus over here with all of his additional boosts and what have you. And, of course, he will be slightly out of range. That is downright tragic. Okay, well... that's fine. You go ahead and throw out your Dark Weight. You'll probably never get a chance to actually take advantage of this, but there we go. Just crit the guy. And that's about that. Okay. So he's gone. He's going to give his dramatic speech, but that's okay. We'll just peel off all of our units off the ground. They will leave their zombie dragon behind, which is never not funny. And let's go ahead and see what's coming up next. We would have gotten some avoidance charms for getting rid of a undead enemy, but it's fine. We probably never would have gotten there on time. And then from there, we have Karitanai, so we have more Zabos action. Actually, come to think of it, what am I doing? I totally should go to Farampa. Although, I mean, I would say that kind of defeat... Did I do the whole no grinding rule? I genuinely cannot remember. Whatever. Anyway, we'll find out for next time. That's a nice little short bit for today. A couple more fights of progress. And yeah, I will see you next time. Hopefully it's not too loud. I might have to redo this one because it's way too freaking loud. Alright, see ya. Bye.